Three,
two,
one.
Monkey bars.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Thicc Butter podcast. My name's Alex,
My name's Jesse.
aka Thicc
And Butter.
And this is another movie review. Spoiler review. Warning, spoiler.
Big
Spoiler.
warnings. Flashing
Spoiler.
lights.
So if you listen to this and we spoil the movie and you get mad at us, fuck you.
We warned you like three times.
And it's in the title, goddammit. And this is going to be a review for Guillermo del Toro's latest feature film, Nightmare Alley, which came out at the end of 2021. So it came out in like December. Why did it come out the weekend Spider-Man came out, which
I think that's right.
not the greatest decision
No.
to release that movie on the same day as Spider-Man. It didn't do so well at the box office, but I don't know whose idea it was, Fox or Guillermo or whoever the producers had a good idea to sell it to HBO Max and Hulu. So it's on two streaming services as of last week. And yeah, we thought that this was a great opportunity to review this movie because I missed it in theaters.
I did as well.
Which sucks because I don't know why. I think there's just a lot going on. It was like Christmas time. There's a lot going on. I saw like Spider-Man. I think I saw Licorice Pizza. I think over Nightmare Alley because it was coming out at the same time. I think it was another film that I went and saw too. So I'm gonna get a chance to go see it. There's a lot of things that came out at the end of the year that I'm gonna get to go see. Like
it was kind of like it got all clogged up right there, and it just got overpowered by Spider-Man and the New Year and the holidays.
Then also, like, I wanted to see West Side Story. I'm gonna get to see that. There are some things that I missed in theaters, which kind of sucks. But anyway, we're here now. We're gonna talk about it now. But I'm just bummed because I would have loved to see this in the theater.
Because it's really pretty.
Yes, it's gorgeous
so
looking
pretty.
movie. So, so I watched it in the comfort of my own home, no problem. But so what we do before all these spoiler reviews, we talk about our expectations going into the movie. What were our thoughts about the film before we even saw it? What were our expectations, and what were your expectations before you click play on Hulu or whatever you watch the show?
Well, I hold our teddy bear friend Guillermo at really high regards.
Yeah.
I think his movies are absolutely spectacular, and
big fan.
I also am very glad that you saw it before me and you warned me that this was a straight bread and butter film noir.
Yes.
Because I think if I didn't know that, I would have still enjoyed it, but I still would have definitely been expecting the monster
Something
at some
different.
point.
Yeah.
But
I think that's also good to note too about this before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it. The marketing of this film was, I understand it, but the trailer does make this movie look like a monster movie.
Yeah, it does.
And it is
thematically appropriate.
Yeah, it's thematically important, but the problem is that when you attack someone like Guillermo del Toro, who is known for most of his films, other than The Devil's Backbone, which I just rewatched, is a fantastic film. Even that film though is about ghosts, but most of his movies have some fantastical element involved in it.
And they're usually a creature feature to some degree.
And this film is none of those things. Like you said, it is a noir. This is a a noir film. It's definitely his most grounded movie in terms of like um there's nothing fantastical or anything like that going on in the film.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And it's
and the
actually
things that are hinted are not, you know.
yeah, and
Um,
it's actually really I'm realizing it right now how big of the departure it is for Guillermo.
it is, yeah.
And I'm actually feeling more impressed by the film
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times what my criticism of Guillermo's films are that they're always way more creative than any other film like in that
Uh-huh.
like compete with it or are contemporaries with it. But there are moments that are kind of like in Pacific Rim, for example. What a fantastic film, but there's like
Yeah.
weaknesses in like story and like
Yes.
some
Yeah.
directing moments.
Right.
And to do a film that is just like just that, usually directors who kind of take their crutch away, they kind of like flounder for a little bit before they figure it out. But it was like him taking away that crutch, he just like jumped into the deep end and did an awesome job. Just
Mm-hmm.
and he did all these things that he's usually like maybe more have weaknesses in some of his other films, just like were so strong in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Which
so
is really
spoiler, we both
impressive.
like really, really like this movie
Yes. Yeah.
quite a bit. And I also want to preface too that if you don't know who Guillermo del Toro is, which some people might not know who he is a Spanish filmmaker, Mexican, and he's kind of part of this like trio of Mexican filmmakers that are some of my favorite filmmakers of all time, honestly. Guillermo del Toro, Alfonso Cuarón, and Alexander Gonzalez Iñárritu. They were kind of filmmaker buddies from Mexico, and they all are amazing filmmakers today. And that they make very, Guillermo is out of those three is definitely the most commercial um, filmmaker out of that bunch. Guillermo, what's cool about Guillermo, and I think what you're getting at too, is that all his films are different. Each one of his films,
Yeah.
he goes for something unique and different. Like Kronos was a monster movie, a horror movie. Mimic I haven't seen, but I know is like another kind of
Another
monster
monster
movie.
movie.
Devil's Backbone is a drama, like a ghost drama. Then he made the Hellboy movies, which are a fantastic, some of the most underrated comic book movies in my opinion. So much fun, so unique to this day, so creative, and Hellboy means a lot to me as a kid because it was one of the first like action movies I saw when I was young that had like this darkness to it and had this like, and I was really attracted to that.
Yeah.
That first Hellboy movie I watched on loop when I was,
Which might not
12, you
which
know.
might not seem that significant now because all the movies are like that, but Hellboy did that
It was
before
like
it was even
2005
think
or
anyone was
something.
no one was thinking about that
Right.
yet. And Hell and
Yeah.
he made that.
And it's such a creative movie, and I could see like some people. I haven't watched it in years, but those first two I watched a lot when I was young, and then he made Pan's Labyrinth, which is highly regarded as one of the greatest films ever made, but also one of the greatest films of the 2000s, and
Yeah.
was a film that like really shot him into like um you know, master category,
Yeah.
he's very much he's such a high regard of like he's definitely one of our masters, I feel, of someone who's still
Yeah, I
pushing
agree.
the cinematic art form and doing and trying to make original movies made and things like that. And then he made Pacific Rim, which is like,
Such a blast.
such a fun movie. His take on, big blockbuster monster movies and super fun. Then he made Crimson Peak, which is like a gothic romance. And then he made Shape of Water, which most people most likely know him for. And that's the one he won the Oscar for. He won, Best Picture, Best Director. I think he also wrote. He's like basically swept the Academy Awards that year, whatever that year 2017 or something.
Yeah,
Um,
2017.
I absolutely love that film. That is like a very divisive movie, weirdly, and his it just I don't want to talk about that, but I found that film to be incredibly amazing. And so I was so excited to see this because it's just follow up to that film. And yeah, I absolutely love this. And yeah, what you're saying too is that this is totally a noir. Like he set out to make a modern noir film, and I think he achieved. This film was so riveting to
He
me
like
from
he
start to finish.
he blew it out of the park.
Yeah,
It was
and what's
so
cool
good.
about something like this, and why like even before I saw this, I would be on podcasts and telling people to go see it because the thing about this film is that it's a big budget film made for adults. There's no
Yep.
there's no boxer in it. There's no superhero in it. There's no, and it's every penny on the budget you see on the screen. The production design, the cinematography, it it looks incredible. It looks amazing, and that's something that you kind of that's like a given when you go to a Guillermo del Toro film. Is that Crimson Peak is one of the most beautiful looking movies I've ever seen in my life. Like the guy is such a visionary when it comes to like production design, and he's kind of like Wes Anderson in that way, where he
Yeah.
really, really loves sets and loves details of sets and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and really puts time in to do
he's like
that.
a gothic he's like a gothic Wes Anderson.
Totally, he does have a this film, Crimson Peak, Shape of Water. He definitely has a aesthetic feel like vibe to his movies, which is very cool and something that's it's extremely hard to come by, in 2022,
Yeah.
these giant budget movies like this,
I think the other thing that I really just talking about the general vibe of Nightmare Alley and Guillermo's au revoir in general is that he is so good at getting that creepy, dark stories, but still keeping it very fun and entertaining to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That's something that like, watching this film especially is that, Guillermo like also has this weird reputation of I don't even know if like it's weird, but sometimes like I think people misinterpret like what I was saying is like he's very like accessible. His films are like even like something like The Devil's Backbone, which is like, something that came out like 20 years ago, is a very accessible movie. And it's all his movies are just very um classical in the sense of like they're he's not trying to like he's still trying to make entertaining movies for the masses of people. He
yeah,
wants the masses to enjoy his films.
that is kind of a novel, that kind of old school thought process of wanting to entertain the audience is
Mhm.
kind of like almost is almost an old
Well,
retro kind of mindset now in a way.
entertaining the audience like on this scale, of like making
Yeah.
movies that, obviously that's a lot of filmmakers want to make entertaining movies that entertain the masses, but
Yeah.
not on this scale,
Yeah.
and like this type of movie,
Yeah. 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 I think
What do you think?
I'm trying to think about like the best way of how to like really dive in
Yeah.
to starting to dissect this
Well,
because
I mean, we can talk about what it's about.
yeah, let's just move into like the plot synopsis of it then. And
So this film is about Bradley. It stars Bradley Cooper, in what I think is probably his best performance. It's my favorite Bradley Cooper performance that I've seen so far. And he plays a man named Stanton Carlisle, who is we open on him. Basically, well, the opening of the movie is like fascinating, but the actual first scene of the movie is like very jarring and kind of odd. But
That was a
He's
really cool. That immediately grabbed me by the way
yeah,
that he
oh
opened the
yeah,
movie. It's
oh
a very
yeah.
strong opening.
And he's basically a drifter. I guess you call him that. He drifts into this carnival. And what I thought was interesting, like Stanton doesn't have a line of dialogue for about like 10 to 15 minutes in the first 15
I
minutes of the
wasn't
movie, which
expecting
I
that.
thought was really interesting. Um, but he plays a drifter where he goes into a carnival and he starts working at this carnival under Willem Dafoe, who is the ringleader of this carnival, and he starts doing a bunch of odd jobs at this carnival, and meets a mentalist, and he starts learning mentalism and uh, starts using it for his own good, his own personal use, and the movie's kind of questioning like the morality and something like mentalism and the morality of using it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the overall, a very basic overall like look, bird's eye view of what this movie is
Yeah.
about.
So I want to talk about like the opening
Hmm.
sequence first because this movie sort of split into like the beginning act
First
section
half
where
and the
he's at
second
the
half.
carnival.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then the part where he leaves the carnival and starts
right.
using his mentalism skills.
Yeah,
I really like how mature the storytelling is and how it's very structured and not abstract, but instead of being super intense about trying to shove what the plot's going to be down your throat. It's very much just unfolding, and
yeah,
every new piece of information, it's like it's this perfect amount of knowing enough and not knowing what's going to happen next.
right,
And like the next thing you learn, it's like I don't really see how that fits yet, and then you get to the next thing and then the piece before that fits, and it's just a
right.
very satisfying progression of how you're seeing these things sort of
That's
unfold
that's
at.
cool. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I think like maybe that feeling comes from like Stanton. Like Stan, like as a character, is fascinating. He's very mysterious. Like you don't really know a lot about him, and as the film kind of you know unfolds, you learn more and more and more about him,
Right.
and you kind of learn that this guy is not a good guy, and so I think that is kind of like one of the strengths of the movie is just Stan. The main character of the movie is very compelling, and he's and that's what like comes with like Bradley Cooper's performance because in the beginning scenes of this movie, you have to like Guillermo does like such a good job of like letting the audience like sympathize with Stan and like empathize with him because that's so important. Because if that doesn't happen, this movie completely falls apart.
Yeah.
If the audience isn't on board with like Stan as a character, like this movie's just not going to work. But the way that Bradley Cooper like gives this charisma. Like Leonardo
Right.
DiCaprio was supposed to play this role before Bradley Cooper, and I think that should tell you like kind of what Guillermo was going for with this character,
Yeah.
who this very charismatic guy, but could have some kind of darkness, underneath.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's a huge testament. If we have to give a huge testament to Bradley Cooper's performance because of what you're saying, and I think that it's also really impressive that he was able to walk that line of being a character who we wanted to follow because some of the decisions he's made are so morally ambiguous or you
Yeah,
just don't really understand why some
yeah,
decisions are made.
yeah,
But there was never a moment where I felt like resistance. I always just wanted to go with him. It's just like
yeah,
just
totally.
take me where you're going. Just take
Yeah,
take me.
yeah. And I think we need to start with talking about the carnival sequence, like the
Yeah.
carnival segment of this movie, which I love. I carnivals are like just the setting is amazing. Like you hear like Guillermo del Toro, and like a fucked up carnival, you're like,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna watch that. Like there's like that's amazing.
Yeah, and going
And
back to expectations, I really had it in my head that it was going to be about like going insane in this carnival. I didn't
yeah,
expect it to just be this opening part of the movie, which I think was actually a really cool and awesome decision because you
totally,
only
yeah,
needed that opening, but I
totally.
was not expecting it
It
to
was cool
leave the
too is
carnival.
that opening sets up, um, a lot of the other characters, side characters too, who are very important. Who I loved almost every side character in this movie. I thought that they were all like Tony Collette, Rooney Mara, Will
Yeah.
Dafoe. The cast of this was fucking amazing.
Toni Collette
Um,
is such a good actress.
love Tony Collette.
She
She's
had such a
incredible, man.
small role in this film, but she is
So
so
important.
memorable.
Yeah, it's so memorable. Richard Jenkins is like one of my all time. He's one of my favorite character actors, and he's in Shape of Water. I think he's nominated for Academy Award for Shape of Water, but he's great in this too. All the side characters I thought were super compelling, and yeah, that carnival introduces you know um Stan's relationship with Rooney Mara's character, and
Hmm.
their relationship blossom, which is like so cute and kind of wholesome, and um and really the why the carnival thing functions so well is to set up like the mentalism, how he starts to um learn about this thing through Tony Collette's husband, who I can't remember the character's name, but
Yeah.
um the older guy.
It might have been Sam, but I'm not sure about
I
that.
thought
I don't
that
think.
character was also super interesting because
Yeah.
they allude to in the movie that he's like, because he's a drunk, right? He's like an alcoholic,
Hmm.
and they allude to the fact that he was like went down some like dark path in his
His
life.
name's Pete.
Pete, yeah, and that he went down this like dark path in his life, and he's settled in this carnival, and he's kind of content with living with his wife and stuff. But he's an interesting character. The way that his demise I thought was really interesting too. But
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, that
jumping all over the place. But
but I mean his that's the thing that's so cool about this movie is how it sort of it connects to itself really linearly.
yeah,
It because you go back to this because Pete's character is a really good like sort of example of being the thing that Stan hates because of his daddy issues, but
right.
also the thing that he
Yeah,
becomes, which is
yeah,
really interesting.
yes,
Um,
yeah, totally.
and it was the carnival was such a good setting for all of that setup stuff because it's this place of isolation and it's really weird and it was such a it made it was like it was free of I don't know. It was like it was a perfect vibe to just let all of the things just sort of bubble up and come to the
Yeah,
surface in
right.
because the environment just spoke to how
Yeah.
it just felt so right in
But
all the
that's
moments.
like that's the production design, man. Like this is the vibe of the carnival. Like first of all, there are some incredible sets in this movie. And not just
Yeah.
like the carnival is like the thing that I think people are going to gravitate towards, but Kate Blanchett's office, like
Yeah.
there's so much incredible design in this movie, but one of the scenes that in that first like we were talking about with the setup with the carnival and stuff, like
Hmm.
one of the things that's super important is setting up the fucking the geek
Yeah.
and the geek being, I mean, one of the saddest things, and unfortunately a thing that's based in reality, where the geek is basically just this uh I mean this man who is just completely is basically tortured and used as like um a show, you know.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly sad. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the Elephant Man, and kind of the similar um thing to that. But what's interesting about the Geek is that, you know, obviously the way the movie ends, but seeing Stan's like empathy towards the Geek. You know, there's some scenes
Yeah.
where we see him because Will Dafoe, who this this made me laugh, but Will Dafoe is unbelievable. So I wish he was in it more because Will Dafoe. But what made me laugh was I was like, I like to think that this is the character in the lighthouse, like another, like this is what he was doing before. And there's a
Yeah.
couple scenes where I was like, is this the same character? Like it's like
Yeah.
doing very similar things.
Do you remember? I'm thinking of the scene when he introduces Stan to Enoch, and he just has like that. He just bursts into a weird
Yeah, like
speech. It's
yeah,
just like,
yeah, yeah. Like it's like what? Wait, is this the same guy?
yeah,
So I thought that was funny, but you know, his ruthless nature towards the geek is just heartbreaking. And one of my favorite scenes is when Stan, he tells Stan to go into the fun house and find him. The geek ran away, and just that set of the fun house and the just the vibe, man, it's just dripping with fucking dread and atmosphere. It's just like you don't see shit like this. Like, where I'm gonna keep underlining that. This is this is cinema. This is fucking like what
yeah,
I need in like movies. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, there's just this fucking real life set that is like just I don't know. It just really, really comes off. You know.
I think that especially that scene is such a good example to describe how what that feeling, because this film had such a refreshing cinematic feeling to it,
Hmm.
because all these Marvel blockbusters are, I wouldn't argue with calling them cinematic, but Nightmare
Yeah,
Alley
yeah.
is just more of like that classic, like true cinematic. I don't want to sound
Like,
pretentious
okay,
saying that, but
no, no, no.
it
I
feels
don't think that's
different.
pretentious. That's totally not pretentious. And because think about this: if this was digital, there's this amazing, like the first shot of that, there's this amazing, they use it in the trailer. It's one of the shots from the movie, but it's this amazing crane shot that is coming down from the carnival. And we get this like amazing sense of wonderment when Stan walks up and kind of looks up at the scale of the fun house. And it
Yeah.
just it looks it's not a digital effect at all. It's because it's real. It's actually there and it's built. And there you can actually feel that. I know that some people might not think that, but you can. You really can feel when something is real and tangible. And part of that is just the shot. Like you wouldn't I don't know if you could really get a shot like that if that whole thing was like green screen, you know, like
Yeah.
but because it's there, you're able to get these incredible, more cinematic shots,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, I think that's also because, again, referring to Pacific Rim, I thought that was such a
Right.
great example of like, if you just have a director who knows how to use a camera and get
That's
shots
true.
that are amazing,
Right.
then he gets that, because Pacific Rim feels really cinematic, and it's like
Totally.
it's a
All
CGI
CGI,
fest for
right.
sure.
But I mean,
But
that movie too, is like if you look at the behind the scenes of Pacific Rim too, that movie, the visual effects of that, they went in on
yeah,
that movie. I mean, Guillermo kind of knew exactly what he wanted, and he knew how he
yeah,
wanted it to feel. You know,
yeah. And I think that's
they
the
designed it like that.
and I think that's the big thing, because, and I
Hmm.
think he probably worked, because this movie is just a film noir. I bet he worked really hard to make everything feel really practical and
Totally.
gritty,
And I
because
know
it
he does
just,
because Shape of Water, you know, is also like this, super practical. Even the river lobster is uh all practical. It's a no digital except for the eyes, obviously, but the
Mhm.
everything else is a suit,
Yeah.
a practical suit.
And what I like about the way that this film feels, with an emphasis on feeling, is that, and what I like about Guillermo's directing in all of his movies is that he is a very visual director, but I think there's an over obsession in a lot of movies to just create things that look realistic or look like how reality
Yeah.
looks.
Oh,
And
totally, dude.
and Guillermo really focuses on getting it to feel the way he wants to evoke the
Absolutely.
world.
This is cinema.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's cinema.
there are lights.
Yeah.
There's yes. If you're going for realism, there's some lighting in this movie that would never happen and never would look the way that it does. I was thinking
Yeah.
the Kate Blanchett, a lot of those office scenes with the amazing window lighting and this incredible like the
Right.
snow falling. But if you're watching that and you go like that's not realistic, you suck. I'm sorry. Like this is what this is. This is
Uh.
cinema. This is what that just shows a lack of. You have never seen a movie that was made before the year 2000.
Yeah.
Like so. I don't know if people are saying that. I doubt people are saying that.
Yeah.
But you're so right. I mean, that's such a good point. Is that he is he's creating mise en scène. He's creating the sense of
Yeah.
dread, not just with the colors of the costumes that people wear, the colors of this movie, the color palette. It reminds me a lot of like Wes Anderson, where he takes so much detail in everything, like not just Stan is wearing the certain things that he's wearing, like Riniwara, she's always wearing red, and there's some symbolism there, and Kate Blanchett's character, with the red lips, and like these, it. Yes, all movies do this, but this movie, like, it clicks so well that you notice a lot of these choices that are being made, and like the production design and lighting, which is like good shit. It's good
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. And I think the other reason why, well, why I found it so inspiring and why I think it works so well, is also his decision to just really focus on nothing else except like the camera work and working with the actors, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very, it's weird, but it's really that's how cinema
Yeah.
was,
Right.
working with your limitations. And now it seems, and now with all this technology, which is really awesome and has
Mm-hmm.
released some amazing feats of filmmaking,
Right.
it's something that you're not put into a position as much, especially if you're a big time director like
Yeah.
Guillermo. So it's
Right.
really cool to see that like really limited and restricted filmmaking, but not in
Yeah.
a way that it suppresses the
But
creativity
somehow
of it.
it still feels extravagant, which is like
Yeah,
something
it
that I love
does.
about him. Like, for example, like this is something that like not a lot of filmmakers would even do. Like, I know that Spielberg, like kind of does this, but like in intimate scenes where like Guillermo will use a crane, which is no one fucking does that. Like in a scene, like in a lot of those some of my favorite scenes in the movie are the Kate Blanchett and Bradley Cooper scenes in that office. And if you really break down what's happening is that there's just two people talking to each other. And
Right.
like if I were shooting it, I would just, lock it down, do your standard,
Shot reverse
medium
shot.
shot. Yeah, right. This motherfucker puts a crane in this intimate scene, and you get these amazing push-ins and these amazing kind of like it just feels so extravagant. He's using the money to like his like okay, we have the money, let's fucking put a crane in this fucking thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just feels so good. But let's talk about the story. We
Yeah,
can go
yeah, let's
on
get
and
back.
on. We can go on and on about how good this movie looks and sounds and everything. But
Yeah, so do
um,
we want to move past the carnival part that
yeah, sure. I
stands.
mean, I think what's also important too is that, like, yeah, I thought like Rewire was amazing. That and that character, her character is interesting. Where I love that fucking scene when she's trying to figure out that her act is like the electricity
Oh yeah.
girl, and it's not really going well. Instead, has like this amazing idea to create this like cool effect and stuff like that. Those scenes are so sweet. Them like creating that contraption and it like going, working well and in front of an
Yeah.
audience. It was great. Um,
And that actually brings up another point of why the storytelling is so good, because that scene is really cool because it introduces it. Well, the great thing about the storytelling here is that every moment does progresses the story, but then it does like 30 other things to help like contribute to the overall texture and construction of this world. Because that
right.
scene that you were talking about, it introduces um Rooney Mara's character and like the whole thing. And then it also introduces, it's kind of when Stan sort of opens up and starts talking more in the film.
Yes,
And but
right.
then it also introduces him kind of being psychotic and
Manipulative. Yeah.
sociopathic
Yeah,
too.
manipulative, and you're so right, totally. And I think what's also important to note too is that Tony Collette's character being a one of the coolest things is like this you know going back and like cleaning out the ending and the almost the destiny part of this movie, like the inevitable thing where
Yeah.
Toni Collette is this like empath, I guess what you call her. I guess like she's a psychic. She reads tarot cards and she reads, um, and then there's a cool setup in that where, um, and even through like Peter demonstrating mentalism to Stan, we learn about his dad and learn about things like that. And we also I don't know that first part we no, that's literally when he gets the tarot reading, right?
Yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
I
Yeah, that where he
fucking love that.
basically,
But
yeah, I think
but
that's so
there
cool
but it
too.
also I think I was needing to say is that it introduces this movie isn't surreal or um fantastical in a way, but what's cool about this movie is that there is this kind of layer of like the supernatural
Yeah.
or the I don't know what you call it, but
Well, this is what
which is
you
cool.
talking about. This has made me kind of think about this, right? Like this is right on the like coming to my head right now about like what how
Yeah,
this movie is functioning. Um, because one of the things that I think is really cool about it is how it's the blending, how everyone is very materialistic and not spiritual or mystical in it. Even
uh-huh.
Toni Collette's character, she's like, it's just an act, right? It's just an act. She does say like the tarot cards don't lie at some point, but at
Right.
the end of the
She
day,
does.
they're all kind of like this is just an act. But then there's
Well,
that
right,
cool
and that's
scene with
because they're putting on like you can see the bullshit of like her show, the Tony
right, right.
Collette show where he helps with that. And so yeah, it's cool.
but but then there's also that factor where we have like that scene with Pete where Pete was showing what would become Stan's act when he kind of takes over when he becomes a mentalist. It
Yeah.
was showing that it was so like close to reality, his act, that it was almost like he was predicting the future and he could control people like that.
Yeah,
So it was
dude.
this cool
Yeah,
blending of
totally.
like when you have such a mastery of psychology and manipulation, it is kind of like you have superpowers, which
Yeah,
is
and
which
that's
is
kind
what
of
like
the disturbing part of the movie, right?
right. Yes, yes.
Because mentalism is real. This is a real thing that people do, and there are mentalists who still, do shows and operate in the world today. And just the idea, because it is a superpower. You're so right. There is and I saw a interview with Bradley Cooper actually about this movie, and it was really interesting because he talked about playing the character in the darkness and how kind of says that he kind of fucked me up a little bit playing this character
Wow.
because you're getting in the mindset of someone who is manipulating people on such a deep level that it's like even learning how to do that, like, he was doing research about, talking to people who do this, like mentalists and stuff, and he was just getting a little freaked out about it because it's a
Yeah.
very it's because he easily could see, not maybe not him, but see someone who could do this become, you know, Stan, become this character
Yeah.
that the movie's about, So I think it just really like hit like a deep root and like, oh shit, this is like this movie isn't, it's we're actually kind of saying something too with this, where
Yeah.
about this, but
And
um,
it also is really cool how even though you might not, again, it's not like you're literally understanding it, but it intuitively connects at the point, like after Pete does his demonstration of that, and Tony Collette and both of them say it's like, don't let it turn into a spook show. You
right,
totally understand how it would destroy a
could,
person
oh
if
yeah,
you let it become a spook show. And it's not
right,
really something that is just like, I understand why that is because of X, Y, and Z. It's like,
right,
but you feel it's like, yeah, that is what would happen. That is what would
yeah,
happen to a person in that situation.
totally. And so yeah, so after that carnival sequence, we get we so Stan and Ron Perlman, who's fucking I forgot Ron Perlman's in this,
He's such
of course.
another great. Him and the little person are so
Yeah,
good.
Ron Perlman's so great, and he's there protecting the Rooney Mara, and because he's basically a father figure to her, and Stan, when he starts, which is this is why this movie works so well, and like another thing that like is really great about Stan is that when Ron Perlman is antagonizing Stan, like stay away from him, I kind of felt uh anger towards Ron Perlman's character because I um was sympathetic to Stan. But
Yeah,
ultimately Ron was correct.
yeah,
Ultimately, Ron Perlman's character knew that this guy was bad news and knew that this guy was ultimately a slime ball,
yeah.
and kind of
Manipulator.
a manipulator and a geek, destined to be a geek.
Yeah,
Um, and so that's super cool. But yeah, so they flee and it goes 2 years later. And I don't know what city they're in, but
Buffalo. I looked it
Buffalo,
up.
okay.
Buffalo.
Interesting. Buffalo, New York.
I didn't know that when I was watching the movie. It
Yeah,
was written in the Wikipedia.
cool. And so yeah, so we see that Stan is a mental. He's putting on these shows. Um, he's putting on a lot of shows, two a night.
Very
And he's
successful.
very
Very
successful. He's
successful.
very and like those scenes, like seeing him do the show, are like crazy. Like they're very eerie. There's an eerie vibe to it,
Yeah.
which I really, really, really dug. Um, and it's this eerie vibe of like people are enjoying it, but there's also people that are like, "Whoa, like what is this?" It's almost like what, it's like going into like I can't imagine being in a show like that. It's definitely like a odd because there are things that like and they show in the scenes where there are some fun things where he guesses what's in your purse or he guesses, what your life is about. But on one hand, he starts, calling out like saying things like, about their wives and shit like that.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets like, oh, like,
Yeah,
oh,
and I mean the thing that's so great about that is the subtext of the scene because it is on the surface it's an entertainment sequence. He's entertaining these people,
yeah.
but really what it's about or like this the creepy underbelly at least to me is it's like about this it's this power flex, right? It's
No,
about
it's
like
he's
controlling these
enjoying it.
people.
He
Yeah.
ultimately and what's cool is that just in that what I was a little worried about, and something that I do have maybe like a little bit of a criticism on is like
Mhm.
that transition in the 2 years later. it's definitely it slows down a little bit, and it definitely like
Hmm.
um because it does it's almost it's switching, it's turning into almost a different movie at that point where it's very like different tone,
Yes.
and I think it just takes a little bit of time to like get the groove going. But when he first like meets with Kate Blanchett, I think that's when it kind of uh like opens up to me again. Um, but um, but like just in that first scene, like seeing how Stan has even changed, he like Stan like he talks to Rooney Mara differently. You can tell that this thing is going to his head,
Yeah, it's
where
getting to
he
him.
where he feels like he is a god. He feels powerful.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, leads to his downfall.
Yeah, which is also cool because this whole movie is about like scattering hints to how Stan is spelling his doom. It's
Yes,
about him like spelling his own destruction,
yes,
with like the setup of the geek at the beginning,
right,
which like don't turn it into the spook show. And
right,
then the scene with Dr. Ritter, which is a really intense scene because
yeah.
Dr. Ritter
Oh, yeah,
knows because they're playing it as being real psychic stuff. It's not just like
yeah,
an impressive show where you kind of know
yeah,
what's going on.
right.
It's like these people really believe he can read their minds.
I
And
love that.
Dr. Ritter was who's Kate Blanchett's character,
Right,
was a skeptic and kind of guessed what their process was, which she was
right,
actually right. But then what was creepy, and she got in the way of them doing the act in their typical way. What was creepy is how Stan's character was able to still guess what was in her purse and stuff and had that
yes,
really
yeah,
extreme and over the top like power display,
right,
which again causes
right,
problems later in the movie
right.
when Kate Blanchett turns
And
into the femme
and that's
fatale.
also the scene that really scares Rudiwara, too,
Yeah.
where she's like, "Who are you?" Like
Yeah.
that was fucking weird. Um, and yeah, that Kate Blanchett, she's one of the best actresses, working today. And I loved her performance in this movie.
Yeah.
She just felt straight out of the noir. Like it's like you
Yeah,
would
she
have
really
plucked her
did.
straight out of like a 1940s film and put her in this. And her look, her just the she's so great. I love her performance in this.
Yeah.
Um, and that character was fascinating. Just she's a psychologist, right? She's like a
Yeah.
um
Yeah, she's a psychologist.
psychologist, yeah. And the way that she like him and Stan, her and Stan, like devise this kind of plot to get money out of people because of his psychic powers. Like convincing some of her patients that he can speak to the dead and that he can connect them with their loved ones. And that is when the movie gets super dark, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Because on the surface, somebody can look at that and be, I don't know, like I found it to be incredibly dark, but I can see someone like maybe thinking that's a little corny. But you have to remember, like, this is set in the 40s, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I led to believe like people believe in supernatural like shit today, but I would assume that in the 40s it was I think people were even more led to believe some of these things that he's telling them,
Right.
that I'm the empath, like I can speak to God, I can speak to your loved ones, to actually have a connection. But him being a manipulator, just in terms of like a charismatic manipulator and being able to be friends with somebody and like that combination is toxic, and you see that, um, with Richard Jenkins' character who is I I loved him in this, but that whole character arc was just was so eerie and gross and just I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, what's so, again, what's so layered about that problem is how Stan is doing these things, which he clearly knows that he's just straight up lying to them and
For
manipulating
money.
their emotions for money.
Yeah.
But then his point is also that at the end of the day, like with the couple who had the son who he helped them, like
Oh
he
my
he
God.
he
Yeah,
made
that
like
was
the claim that
yeah.
it like fixed his marriage and he's
Right.
resolving like real problems. He's actually, you know, making these people feel better, you know,
Yeah.
which is a really like conflicting argument because it's just
Yeah.
like, is it better just to give these people net happiness or is it better to give them the truth?
Well, I think the film was kind of sad because that couple they
Commit
got off
suicide.
goes south, and that is something that like really, because I can see that that was like something that was plausible to me. Like if you really believed, you know, that your son who tragically passed away, like if you believed that you could see him again, you know, truly believe, like someone convinced you, because ghosts, like people, spirits, like people, you know, they want to believe it's a spiritual thing, but most people will not kill themselves to, or to even like flirt with the idea that seeing if it's true or not, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he
yeah,
convincing someone, it's not like he told them to kill themselves, but what he did say is that told them for a fact that your kid is you're going to see your kid when you move on.
right.
And what was so eerie about that suicide scene is that she was so content, you know, she was so um like we our marriage is better, you know? Like I think but and she was just like, all right, let's go see our kid. Like we have nothing else. We're just gonna die here, you know, we're just
Yeah,
gonna get old and die.
yeah,
So
yeah,
let's
yeah,
just die now. And that scene was so eerie. Um and yeah, that like from that moment on, things just get wild.
yeah,
Things just get progressively more dark.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the eeriness of that scene, which continues on into the rest of the movie, is again a testament to how good of a director Guillermo is, because a lot of directors would just stop on the fact of like a suicide being disturbing enough to like just be creepy
Sure,
for
yeah.
people, but it's really the underlying
It's the
subtext of
subtext,
why those
right,
people committed suicide that makes
right,
it so eerie and
exactly,
uncomfortable,
right.
which when we get into like unpacking Urza's Kindle's character, or what, Richard Jenkins, is that the actor's name?
Richard
um
Jenkins, yeah,
why that plot progression and his relationship with him
right,
and his story,
yeah,
that is even more disturbing like as we go
right.
into that.
And like, I also like this is what like all things just come together where, and also like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Tony Collette and Ron Perlman, you know, they're in town and they come visit, you know, Renee Wire and
Mm-hmm.
Stan, and it's this very sweet scene, and it's a very like coming together of old friends, and they're drunk, they're drinking, and Tony Collette is like, "You want to read your tarot cards?" And the tarot cards are straight up telling them like, "You're gonna, you know, you're gonna lead, this is gonna lead to your downfall. Something is going to, um, you're gonna fall off."
Yeah,
And he kind of looks at like, kind of like scared, you know, a little nervous, but Tony Collette then get, like kind of undercuts it by being like, you know, it could be true or not, you know.
yeah, yeah,
And you know, looking back on the movie, it's super eerie, and that's the kind of cool vibe of this movie, that it kind of gives off this, that there is something, you know, in the ether with these tarot cards and things like that that um are true, you know.
yeah. Well,
Which is
that's another thing that's really cool about Stan's character, which really another reason why the ending is the
oh
because the ending could easily have been a blind side, just
yeah,
like get you kind of
right.
ending, but it wasn't at
Mm-mm.
all because of that, like a moment like that, because Stan
Right.
has a part of him that's conscious that he's destroying himself, like he recognizes
He
that
does.
and he sees that throughout the movie.
And the ending is like I don't want to get to the scene yet, but like
Yeah, yeah.
that scene, is like it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, but it's also like cathartic in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
Which I think is brilliant about this movie.
yeah,
But I do want to talk about like more of the Richard Jenkins stuff
yeah, yeah.
because
Let's talk about that.
how that goes, because I thought that was fucking cool. Where um so Richard Jenkins like I gotta see my wife again, says like, okay, we will, but we gotta train first, so
Yeah,
he's kinda like really, really milking it, and he's getting to the point where he's like, we got it has to happen now,
right. Which
Um,
is really scary because Richard Jenkins' character didn't just lose his wife. He, I think, beat his wife into a forced abortion and then covered it up. So
and he's
she was just like
also
a,
he's a rapist.
yeah, like a rapist
Yeah,
murderer who like
right,
kills young women. So
right,
he's like, with a lot of money, he's a really scary, intimidating dude. So
right.
Stan is feeling the fucking pressure.
Yeah, he's feel the pressure, and he doesn't know that he's a rapist
Right.
before the end, but um, he definitely knows that there's something kind of off about the guy. um, but and then so this is like another like one of the more heartbreaking things about the film is like how Rooney Mara, who's such a innocent and sweet character, gets roped up into um Stan's
Insanity.
insanity,
Yeah.
and you know, she tries to run away from him, stand being the manipulative and just charismatic guy, convinces her to help him dress up as his wife and stage this like ghost sighting, which was so that scene. This is like again back to the visual thing, like the snow, the
Yeah.
lighting was just so awesome. And I know that, you know, like snowflakes aren't that big, okay? But it's just they look so good. It's the even the scene, like every fucking scene of the movie is beautiful. And like there's the effort that he will there's that scene where they initially go to the grave and Richard Jenkins and Bradley Cooper are just walking through the snowy grave and they just sit on a bench. It's beautiful. Like them,
Yeah.
like with the snow and just that whole like just conversation is like aesthetically gorgeous. Like
Yeah.
they like easily a filmmaker was like in a scene like that wouldn't take the time to like have the snowblower come and like get the right amount of snow that's falling. Like it's just like
Right.
the
Yeah.
effort is just undeniable.
Yeah. It's so, again, that scene is a really good example of why this movie is so cinematic throughout,
Hmm.
because it's that attention to not just, he just does it. It's not just like conversations or just exposition scenes. Like we have that in Marvel scenes. We
Yeah,
have like the expositions where people are
exactly.
talking.
Which
So we
work,
kind of, we get on
and
track. Yeah,
fine.
it works. It always
Yeah,
works.
right.
But then it's always like a placeholder to get to the next exciting thing to happen. So it,
Exactly.
it makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
But Guillermo is like, nah, this is a piece of
Yeah.
my world. It's a piece of the puzzle. And this
Exactly.
needs the
Right.
same amount of attention as that
Right.
cool scene
Yeah.
where Bradley Cooper is performing as a mentalist, or the geek
Exactly.
scene. It
Right.
needs the same amount of attention.
Right. And yeah, so that whole end scene is like it just falls apart, and
Yeah.
it's progressively worse for Stan, who like she he basically convinces tells him that he's basically a rapist, and Stan's like, what? And he runs up to her, realizes that it's not her. Just shit gets crazy. Does Stan get stabbed? Like what happens? Like, oh
So
no,
the
no, Stan brutally fucking
yeah,
kills him. Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. He
He
fucking
beats him so hard in the face, he pushes his nose into his mouth,
right,
into
which
his
was
face.
also set up in the carnival scene where he takes down the geek like that. So you kind of have this weird sense that he is kind of powerful, and
Yeah.
has some strength to him. And
Yeah.
that just when he's doing that, and Rooney Mara is just stop, like you're gonna fucking kill him, and he just that's the kind of like the marketing behind this, where the animalistic or the beast. The tagline of the movie is "Man or Beast," and
Yeah.
like um that I understand marketing towards that, where it's like about a man, revealing his true self as a beast,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was heartbreaking. And what was what I was so disturbed about is after he did that, he just gets up and acts like almost nothing happened. Like acts like that he um had to do that,
Yeah. So matter
and
of
then
fact.
running over the other guy with the
Yeah, the
car,
guard. Yeah, yeah.
without hesitation. And you're
Yeah,
like, dude,
dude.
this guy is fucked.
Yeah,
Um,
dude.
and that's at that point you also know that he killed his father, I believe, right? You
Yeah.
know that Stan killed his father. Um, and that he had this like bad relationship with his dad that ultimately killing him. So um like so that just really just underlines that this guy is dark and this dude has not a good guy.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's one of the scenes that's in cinema that just has that compelling, a really creepy feeling to it. And there's so much behind it that it's hard to like distinguish and articulate all the pieces that
yeah.
goes in to the emotions, because we've seen like scenes where people suddenly turn violent
Oh
or
yeah.
something
Oh right, right,
and they
right,
like
right.
die
Totally.
murderly, but the way that that film worked for me,
Yeah.
where like after seeing how he demolished that man's face just
Yeah.
hit me in such an intense and
Yeah.
particular
Oh
way.
yeah.
It's indescribable
It's just
like how that kind of
really,
felt.
really well set up. And also like Stan like just progressively getting more and more aggressive, as the movie goes along, especially with
Yeah.
Rudy. And like so you feel that it's bottling up. You feel that he's going to unleash at some point. And when he does, it's you know,
Yeah. And I liked that the way that you described it too, because it, he it's such a great performance of a sociopath, right? Like is
yeah, oh yeah,
because of that break
yeah,
when he murdered, it wasn't like him losing control and panicking. It was his matter of fact way of just dealing with the situation
right,
where he kept control.
exactly,
And it's so creepy. That's just
yeah.
so
And
creepy.
what's really creepy too is that he like tries to save Rudy, like gets her
Yeah.
out of there, and it's just like there's a weird bittersweet sadness to it because he clearly really loves her, but the thing is that he is so um self-destructive that it's just like this, never have a relationship,
Yeah,
you
you're in too
know?
deep, man. You're
Yeah.
way too deep.
And then he flees, he like goes to Kate Blanchett's office, and that's when like I would call this a twist. This is a
Yeah.
twist.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
Kate Blanchett was revealed that she was kind of manipulating him um, to what was going on? She was recording him, right?
Yeah, so what happened is that she agreed to Kate Blanchett had been feeding Stan information about these big wig targets so
Right.
that he could uh
Yeah.
manipulate them to give money
Right.
and to give a convincing performance. And in exchange, Kate Blanchett was having Stan do therapy sessions with him where he would reveal truth about his
Right.
past.
Exactly.
and
Right.
and at the ending there, she turned it on its head where she first of all stole all his money
Yeah.
and then used all the tapes to make it seem like he was turning psychotic, which
Right.
wasn't really that hard to do at that
No.
point.
No.
And
No.
then
But he was. That was the funny part.
yeah, yeah. And then she also was very careful to make sure that she never made it clear that she was
Yes.
actually ever working with him.
Right.
So
Right.
everything was on his shoulders, and it looked like he was manipulating her
And then
at
they
the end
fight.
there.
He killed her. Um, and he gets stabbed. There's that great
Yeah. Well, he
That's
doesn't.
what.
He doesn't kill her. He tries to kill her, but she doesn't die.
Oh, she doesn't die.
No, he just chokes her with the
Strength,
telephone
strength. Oh
cord.
yeah, then
Yeah,
lets her
and then
go. Right.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
security
yeah.
comes up and she
He gets
survives.
shot. He got shot, right? So
Yeah, he gets shot in the ear, and
oh yeah,
then
his ear took. That was awesome.
yeah, that his ear explodes, and I think he gets hit somewhere else. But I'm
Yeah,
not quite sure, maybe like the stomach or
yeah.
something, but he definitely loses an ear.
And like that chase scene was fucking ridiculous. So he like flees from the cat, and like just the shots of him just like bloodied and like running through the streets and getting
Yeah.
like blood on the walls. It's like all these cool cinematic elements that you'd see in movies, but like the way that it's presented, like it just feels so much more like
Yeah.
like impactful.
And the other thing I really like about that chase scene, I think is so cool about it, is that a lot of times when there's chase scenes in Hollywood movies, especially, the main character gets away because they're the hero and they're
Mhm.
being chased. And obviously, the hero gets away. But he gets away because of his sociopathic cunningness, right? Like
Yeah,
he breaks that key, he like leads
right,
them away. He is smart enough to hide behind the chicken
right.
coop and like cover his breathing. He
Oh
does
yeah,
all
that
this
was so
shit,
great.
which proves how he could do this impossible thing of
Yeah,
getting away from all of the cops in
yeah, you're
Buffalo.
so right. That was so
Um,
great. Because you look like how he gets away just tells so much about his character too.
yeah,
Which
and
is great.
also shows how when he's in a dire, because earlier in the movie, like when you could almost it almost makes you think that when he was in the carnival and not really talking, that he was acting there. He was like acting like he didn't really know, but what
Yeah,
he was actually doing, especially which all becomes
yeah,
clear, is that he was gathering information of
right.
how to get this
Uh-huh.
control. And then
Right.
at the end there, it was like he wasn't pretending to be incompetent or not know things
Exactly.
anymore. He was like busting out all of his tricks because
Right.
from the very beginning of this movie, he was a sociopath who had
Yes.
already killed.
Right. Exactly. And then he gets on a train,
Yeah,
and this is like, this is I feel like maybe the most bold thing about the movie is the way the movie ends that we
I
kind of
agree.
alluded to. This is definitely something that um is the type of ending that you're not like we initially ends, you may be like, what? Like you may be like, what did I just see? Um, but if you listen to this and you did feel that way, I implore you to sit back and just think about the movie.
Yeah,
Just think about the past events. Think about what this is all leading to,
yeah,
and the ending will make a lot more sense to you. And I think it will really, really work. I think the ending to this movie. I haven't seen all the movies in 2021, but like this is probably it's one of my favorite endings I've seen like this year.
I would agree.
Um, because it's first of all it's unexpected, really how this movie really ends, but it's so fitting. It's like one of those like endings that's like unexpected but like works so fucking well, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And the other thing that I think doesn't really work is how long is he on the train for? Because
yeah,
he gets off the train and he has like a beard and he has like it looks like months went by. And I'm like, what was going on in the months? Like we're just hanging out were you a hobo for like months? What are you eating? Are you eating those chickens in there? Like I'm so confused.
yeah.
It's
There's
such
a
a small
couple,
thing, but like,
but that was another point about. Well, that's a small criticism I had. Which once we talk about the ending, maybe we can
yeah,
address that too. But anyways, back to the ending scene where
yeah,
so he's a hobo on the train
right.
and he's miserable, pathetic, and super fucking sad.
Super fucking sad, and he uh goes to a carnival. He stumbles upon a carnival.
Is it the same carnival? I had the impression it was the same carnival,
It might be. I don't
but
know.
in the future, but like
Yeah.
time has
Yeah. Yeah.
passed.
Yeah. Yeah. It might be. It looks like the same one.
Yeah.
But so he stumbles upon it and he goes to the ringleader, I guess, whoever is, um, and it's this just scene where he looks terrible. You know, he has like long hair, long beard, dirty, and he basically goes up and asks for a job. You know, tells him like, "Hey, I you know I'm a mentalist. I've been I was doing this for years," and he's so dismissive. And ultimately he offers him the geek, right? He says
Yeah.
like, and this is like Bradley Cooper. He's amazing in this whole movie, but that last scene he was so fucking good at that scene. And it's all and I think in the same interview I was talking about is he talked about that last scene and how difficult that last scene was to pull off.
Yeah.
He's saying that him and Guillermo like talked about it for like he actually told this funny story where they had that set like uh because like they had that set like ready at like all times because they both were so nervous about it
Yeah.
during that scene that they would like be like go and cry and then be like okay like I'm too nervous. Let's just shoot something else. So we can't shoot it right now.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there is like and
Wow.
I get it because that last scene is that last shot is so important. Like if that doesn't
Yeah.
translate and that doesn't
The whole thing
come
falls
off,
apart.
it just doesn't just poops out. Just you know, and but Bradley Cooper fucking nailed that. Like he nailed
Yeah.
it. And it's this what I'm saying is that there's this he breaks out in tears. This almost like tears of joy and tears of like almost like relief. Like there's just such this pouring of emotion that comes out, and not crying. Like it's this just mixed emotions, really, just mixed emotions. And he just says, I was destined, to
I
be
was
the dude.
born for it.
I was
I
born
was
for it.
born for it.
And credits. And like it's so amazing. It's like it's this like heartbreaking ending, but it's this extremely like cathartic ending for the character. It's like he's been holding this thing in for so long, and him finally at the end realizing who he is as a person, and that's just so cathartic because this whole movie he's been putting on a front. We learn that he's like you were saying in that first scene, he's acting, he's putting on this front, but he's a sociopath. But him at the end, just realizing that where he belongs, he belongs in a cage and belongs in uh, being tortured, but he he is accepting of that. And there's something just so eerily beautiful about it, which is like kind of what this whole movie that scene is just so indicative of the whole movie as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so deep.
It's an impossible thing to put into words because they executed something phenomenal with that last shot where it was just the camera shot was just right.
Yeah.
The way that Bradley Cooper laughed, the way he
Oh, exactly.
cried,
Right.
the time before he said the line, the
Yes.
way he
Yeah.
presented the line, the time we
Yeah.
lingered after all of that,
Oh, yeah. It's
it just worked
yeah.
perfectly. And
Right.
it I feel like it takes away from it to try to describe like what's working there because
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
works like
Right.
that. It just works. And I agree.
Very, very deep
I think
level.
I think the things that you were saying was all right about like why it connected. And I think it was
Yeah.
just like it was just that moment where it just connected, where he knew what was going to happen to him,
Right.
and then it happened.
Right.
And it just all came out like right there.
And
And
what's
it was fantastic. It's just
right.
so cool.
And what's weird, like, weird, disturbing, and cool thing about the movie is that, like, you it makes you think about, like, the idea of destiny. It makes you think
Yeah.
about the idea of your actions coming to haunt you. And I think that ending is just so, indicative of that too. Like, great endings to movies. Like, I think about the Coen brothers, and also Guillermo has incredible endings. The endings to Devil's Backbone, fucking incredible. Shape of Water has an amazing ending. Pan's Labyrinth is a fucking incredible ending. There, he's so good at ending his movies. I just kind of
Yeah.
realized that all of them have phenomenal endings. Um, and they all end on a super striking image too, which is great. And that's, again, cinema. That's this
Yeah.
cool idea to end your movie on a cool shot, like, on a cool moment, and that invokes so much feeling. And,
Yeah.
like, an ending like Nightmare Alley, it recontextualizes the whole movie. Like,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like, that is how the fuck you should end the movie, man. That's like, leave the audience with thinking about the film. There's so many movies that come out that are, I'm more specifically talking about, like, big budget movies that come out that, like, they don't let the audience, like, they don't want the audience to, like, think about it, which is, like, weird. Like, this movie, like, begs the audience to have the movie linger in their mind after, in the car, after they see it, and
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they're driving back to their house, like, that's good shit, man. Such
Yeah, I
good
mean
shit.
that ending really felt. I mean, this film really felt like when you're putting together a puzzle, and when you're putting together a puzzle or something, you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of looking at it kind of close, and you're looking at the specific pieces and how they connect. You're doing one piece at a time, but when you
Right.
get to that last piece, it's like bam, which feels great to put in that last piece because you did it,
Absolutely.
you finished it. But then the next great moment is when you step back and look at the whole fucking puzzle. And that
Exactly.
was
Right.
exactly how the end of Nightmare Alley
Yeah.
felt to me. It was like,
Right.
I see this shit now. Like I
Right.
see the whole picture,
Totally.
and it's amazing.
And
It's
that's kind of
awesome.
the Shape of Water to me too. We see that film. That, to me, I had the same feeling coming out of that movie, where the last shot, the last scene, like, really, like, makes you sit back and recontextualize the whole film.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
I,
that's my
I love endings
favorite
like
thing
that,
about a
man.
movie. When
Yeah,
that like
yeah,
when I get that feeling from it, it's my favorite thing to
yeah.
have that
Oh,
happen.
yeah. It's because it's so satisfying when you
Yeah.
do that, because it's like, you sit through this really, I mean, the movie is super entertaining and super interesting throughout, but the movie could easily have ended with Stan, like, getting shot or something, like getting caught
Yeah.
or something, and,
Yeah.
like, we pan out to his dead body, like, that could have been a fine ending, but
This is the
this is
way.
better,
This
this is like, this is it, this is the way that it should end, and, um for some people, I'm gonna say this again, because I truly believe that a lot of people would see this ending and not get it initially. um Please, please, just rethink about it, and this kind of ending makes me want to rewatch the movie, which is
yeah.
like, which kind of reminds me of, like, some Nolan films. I know I'm not the biggest Nolan fan, but, like, when The Prestige ended for the first time, it, like, blew my fucking mind, and I, like, went and rewatched the movie as soon as it ended. Like, that never happens to me, where I literally went, I had time, and I was like, rewind, and I watched the whole
Yeah.
thing again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you're right. I love that feeling. It's like, you feel like the journey that you went on was worth it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It just makes
Yeah,
the whole thing worth it. And it's yeah. Yeah,
totally.
it's a really magic moment. It's a really magic moment. And you got to be really good to make that work.
It's so hard. It's
You got to be
so
really good.
fucking hard. Yeah, that's why a lot of movies don't even try to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of movies go, the endings like go in a way where you expect it to, or like kind of a more conventional ending, because it's super risky. If you try to end your movie on a risky note like that, I mean, you could easily have.
Yeah.
That's why they were so nervous to shoot the last shot,
Yeah,
because they
that's
knew
so
that
relatable.
if the performance didn't come off, the movie would like not work. Like it
Yeah.
is that fucking like you break down that scene of like what has to happen to make it work. It's basically magic. Like
Yeah.
you kind of like it just
Yeah.
have to keep shooting it, and the actor has to give this like performance where I bet when they did it, Guillermo and Bradley looked at each other and said, "That's the one. That's it." You
Yeah.
know, because there's so many. I want an actor. This is why I think Bradley Cooper's amazing. This like, there's so, like I don't even understand how to even go into a scene like that. Like what to do, you know? Like because
Yeah.
there's so much baggage, you know, that
Yeah.
is on your shoulders doing that scene, you know, and like I don't know. I'm not an actor, but that to me, actors get a lot of smoke blown up their ass, but that shit is great. Like what that with real acting like that, and yes, it is real acting being like it's so you can't explain why it works so well, but it just does, you know,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's not a lot of actors that could pull that off, first of all.
Yeah, it's like that feeling when you're watching like a jazz performance or some kind of music performance and you can just feel that they're in the groove or like
Yeah,
someone's
totally.
soloing and it's
Yeah,
just like they're just in it and they're just killing it. And it's
totally.
just like what it's like you can't necessarily practice your scales to get
Yeah,
that good at that. You just have to have enough experience with music or acting to know how to access that groove and that zone when you need it.
yeah.
And
And it's
man, they were in it at the end. They were
yeah, I just
in
don't.
it.
And also, like not just in that last scene. I mean, Bradley Cooper has amazing scenes in this film.
Yeah,
Like,
throughout. Yeah.
and I keep talking about Bradley Cooper because I think he got snubbed the Academy Awards. Nightmare Alley. He's also amazing in Licorice Pizza. He should have got nominated for one of those two movies.
Yeah.
I'm pissed because they recognize Nightmare Alley. It's nominated for Best Picture. Like, come on, dude. Like he's one of the reasons it works so well.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean like just that scene where he also like goes to Richard Jenkins and he's suspecting that he's bullshitting him, so he takes a lie detector test. And Bradley Cooper in that scene is fucking incredible
Yeah, he's
because
so
it's like
good.
it's again, there's so much baggage with that scene in particular because he has to play it at like there levels. There's like levels to that he has to because the character's doing a performance, and so
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
like this level that you have to like go under. And it's a actually his performance is like I haven't been this impressed by a performance in like in a while.
I would agree. I would agree.
It's
I don't usually
me either.
I tend to like visuals and just like story structure more and like good performances
Yeah,
and stuff, but I'm not an actor. I'm not really
right.
interested in acting. I like movies
Yeah,
more
yeah,
so.
right.
But like I agree with you wholeheartedly that it was just this performance just
Yeah.
grabs me, you
And
know,
there's
because
movies like this that like because this film is so performance centric, you know,
yeah,
like it's so important to the story, you know, that yeah, every once in a while there's just like this performance that you're just like, damn, you know, because it's like sometimes like there's only so much Guillermo like directing could do with like a character like this. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of like great movies like you like Mark Wahlberg. I watched The Happening with my brother the other day, and The Happening is so bad. But Bradley Cooper, Mark Wahlberg has been great in films before. He in that movie, in The Happening, seems like he has never acted before in his fucking life. I'm serious. Like, and
Uh,
so you can really fuck up the performance with directing, but you can also like really enhance the performance with directing. But
yeah.
there's a few times where, yeah, like the last scene, for example, like the direction, it's just one shot. It's just, like this static shot, and all Guillermo was like, okay, well, here's the baggage, reminding you what the character has to be feeling in this moment. So for the actor to fucking portray that, it's just
Yeah,
that's
actually
why it's so
do it.
difficult.
Actually
Because
do it.
long list of it. It's harder than just like, all right, you're sad, and like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like, no,
Yeah.
you're sad, you're happy, you're like, it's just so many different
Yeah.
things.
And now
Anyway,
do that. Put that on your
uh,
face.
yeah, like what?
uh,
Um, so, yeah, this is a fucking dope ass movie.
yeah, I think I like it even more after talking about
Yeah,
it, just
man,
because it's so juicy,
it's
it's
so
so
juicy.
juicy.
This is also really rewatchable too. Like that ending
Yeah.
makes it still rewatchable. And like Guillermo del Toro, man, he comes out with another movie this year. He's doing his adaptation of Pinocchio, his
Which
stop
looks
motion.
so cool. I
Yeah,
I
just
saw that
that
trailer and it
little
was
teaser
like
that they put out.
it's
Yeah,
beautiful. It's amazing. I'm
amazing.
so
And
excited.
Ewan McGregor is the cricket is just cool. And so yeah, I can't wait to see that. He's been working on that for years, and his first animated film, which is really cool.
Yeah.
He's another guy that just seems like that's like a perfect fit. Especially stop motion, where he really gets to like
Touch
control,
the puppets and
really control
stuff.
the elements. He
Yeah.
already controls the elements, but like this is like on a
Whole
different
nother
level.
level. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it looks great. Thank God Netflix is making that happen. That will not happen if Netflix is not around. Shout out to Netflix for also supporting stop motion animation. Um,
Yeah.
they have a lot of stop motion. Like they just put out a horror anthology stop
Yeah, I
motion
saw
on
that,
there.
which looks really cool.
Very cool, man. Like stop motion's amazing, and it's just cool that Netflix recognizes that and is
Putting it
producing like
out there.
a lot of Arden stuff. Who's put all the Shaun the Sheep stuff, which is all fucking great. That's on Netflix now. Gives it a
That's
home,
exciting.
it's cool, man. Gives these artists a platform, like Arlen and that are putting in fucking work, man. It's not easy to make these things, man.
No,
You
it's
know?
so terribly intensive.
So yeah, well, get them paid.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, go check this out.
It's
It's
great.
excellent. HBO Max, Hulu. Um, yeah, this is totally Thicc and Butter approved,
Totally. 100%. There's no doubt in my mind.
no
There's nothing.
doubt.
Oh, the one thing I did,
Oh
just to
yeah,
not blue ball
you didn't
people,
say anything about it.
there was the only criticism I have, which actually doesn't bother me at all. And my criticism is just about how it was a little confusing, but I'm actually glad they didn't do the thing to fix this,
Uh-huh.
because the only problem was how, like, in the beginning of the movie, they were referring to Bradley Cooper as like a boy and a kid. And it's just like, okay, he's 47. He's definitely
That's true.
47. And then
It's true.
at the very end, that time passage where it seemed like it was the same carnival, but like multiple
Yeah,
years has
that's
passed. So
my
like,
criticism that I
so
don't
so
really understand the time gap.
so like the aging of Bradley Cooper didn't
Yeah,
really was
right.
kind of confusing. But like, what
Now,
do?
now that I
You
think
get
about
like
it,
a
it does kind of look like they try to make him a little younger in those first scenes, but you're right,
yeah.
it doesn't.
But like, I
Yeah,
guess the other idea was like, what do? Do you just get like a younger actor to play the beginning?
right.
It's just like, you know what? No, it's fine. I get
Yeah,
it. Like
it
it worked.
works. Yeah,
It
it's
works, and it's
fine.
just like it's. I
Yeah,
think it's a criticism to like talk about, because if you're confused about that, it's like, yes, it is a little
yeah,
confusing.
yeah,
Bradley
right.
Cooper is 47,
Yeah,
and he's
right.
47 throughout the whole film.
He's
But
47.
yeah, he looks
Wow.
he looks very good.
Yeah. Good looking guy.
Yeah.
Um,
But
all right,
that's
everybody.
my only criticism I could even
Yeah.
think of coming
That
up
makes
with for
sense.
that film.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, everybody. We love you. See you in the next one. I don't know what that will fucking be, but you know,
It will
the
be something.
Batman maybe.
Oh,
The next review that
that'd
we
be
do is
sick.
probably the Batman.
That'd be so
So
sick. That's so exciting.
yes, very excited. All right, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.